have a very weird political agenda. I mean, for instance, I don't want to get into an air-clawing rave about this, but I feel as a person who was raised Catholic that I have a certain license to criticize my own subgroup. I think that, the Third Reich was a Sunday school picnic in terms compared to the population policies of the Roman Catholic Church. They will shove millions of people per year into poverty, disease, and death in the pursuit of a theological doctrine that nobody understands the sense of. In a civilized political environment, those people would be placed under immediate arrest, just like we did the leadership of the Nazis. I do not understand how you can call yourself pro-life when the policies that you espouse mean planetary death. That's the program of the pro-life position. More starvation, more agony, more wars, more destroyed land, more toxic output in the name of being pro-life? What have words come to mean? I mean, it's really bizarre. And we, even us in this room, the thing that was so great about the 60s and that is so frustrating about the 90s is people do not get pissed off. I mean, I can tell you this and you can nod in agreement, but, at some point the thing becomes so odious, so clearly intellectually bankrupt, so clearly toxic to any kind of human values that any of us can relate to, that you just have to put yourself on the line. And I don't know when that moment will come. It's not for me to say. I guess a switch will be turned in the unconscious. But there's enough evidence of outrage and muddle-headedness and outright evil around that sooner or later we're going to have to confront it. Otherwise, this is a sinking submarine. And there is no way out unless people who really understand the gravity of the situation and the stakes make their voices heard. If we leave it up to the institutions that have been put in place over the last 500 years, these are anti-human institutions. These institutions hate the human race, hate ordinary people. And until we wake up to this, we're going to be their victims. We're the marks. Well, how do you like being a mark? You can just take so much of that, and then you just finally have to stand up and say enough, And, JP.
Demographically, Japan comes close to what you talk about. They talk about a quiet revolution among Japanese women. But universally, the whole society views it as a disaster that the demographic rate of increase is so low. And no one comes out and actually says this might be a good thing. It's due to the catastrophe that Japanese women are having so few children.
It's interesting. I'll bet, though, that there are sectors in Japanese society that carry a small smile around on their face because they know then that while the rest of the world sinks into food riots, epidemics, and propaganda, that they will probably be able to ride it through. The genius of the Japanese is that they have been living in an environment requiring careful resource management for centuries. They're masters of two things: resource management and long-term planning. We don't understand either. Our attitude is chop it down, move on. See what tomorrow brings. Well, there's a yawning grave waiting for people with those attitudes. Yeah.
In your book, you offered some potential solutions to the problem. There's another problem that's captivated public attention, and that's education. And implicitly, it seems to be an example of the opposite of what this culture cultivates with education. I mean, here, oratory is alive and well, and awareness of history is alive and well. And I'm wondering, how did you choose to educate your own children, and how have your experiences what do they point towards as far as the type of educational reform that this society needs?
Well, you're right. Education is the key. And, it's just my opinion on this, but history is, to not know your history is to be amnesic. I mean, if you met a person who couldn't tell you where they were from 1970 to 80, you would define them as a fairly damaged person. But how many people do you meet who can tell you where Western civilization was between 900 and 1600? People don't know. So since they don't know, they can be fed any shit that is out there, and they don't know. They have no idea. So the way to gain power is to reclaim a command of history. And then you can, like for instance, I remember when the Vietnam War was breaking out, and I was in school at the University of California at Berkeley, and the professor said, we all have to read Thucydides. We all have to read about the war against Sparta, not Sparta, the war against Syracuse, which was in Sicily, and how it destroyed Greek democracy, and how it allowed the ascendancy of the dictatorship of the 30. And why did this happen? Because the Athenian citizenry could not understand the war aims, because the Athenian leadership didn't understand clearly what the war aims were. All the mistakes of the Vietnam War were repeated or occurred in this war, which was fought well before the year zero. But you tell most people to read Thucydides, and they just give you a strange look. Well, it's not because we want to be obscurantists or we want to carry on conversations like Cambridge intellectuals. It's because we want to know what to do with the future. And the first thing you do with the future is you don't make the stupid mistakes that were made in the past. Like this New Age thing amazes me. I mean, there are people who call themselves spiritual thinkers who think that the spiritual quest began with Madame Blavatsky, for crying out loud. Well, I've got news for you. People have been over this ground again and again and again. It always amazes me that people will give their loyalty to a guru who is obviously, a grab tailor and a tax skate and a jerk. And you say to them, well, have you read Plato? Or have you studied Nagarjuna? Do you know what Moses Maimonides has to say about this? And say, why do you follow this guy? He probably hasn't even read these people. Do you know that there have been some fairly bright people around over the last 6,000 or 7,000 years? And yeah, they don't have a white limousine, or they won't invite you up to their place in the Hamptons or something. But they're good. And all you have to do is go to the public library and read this stuff. And people don't want that. They want flash. This very sincere people come to my workshops, and I realize that they want me to tell them this stuff. And because I guess this is better than sitting home on a Saturday afternoon and reading. But Plato said it a lot better than I'm saying it. And so did a lot of other people. Civilization is a vast storehouse of wisdom. But if you don't avail yourself of it, then you have to figure it out based on what's happened since Nixon or something. And you're not going to get very far. They trap you with that. I don't want to rave about this, but what I saw happen to my own university, I think that a conscious decision was made by the American establishment at the close of the 1960s. And what they said to themselves was, this idea of universal education and an educated citizenry, this we don't like. We see now what happens when you educate your citizens. They figure out the game, and they come to you with their plans for reform and how to make it better. So I was like among, at least at the University of California, I was among the last people to go through that university where the goal was to inform you about the nature of the enterprise called Western civilization. And after that, what they got into was this MBA, data entry, all this stuff. The universities became trade schools. And what they give you is video games. You know, they give you TV, video games, and they give you a skill. And you say, well, now you're a level 3 data enterer, and we're gonna give you $35,000 a year, and please shut up about it. That's it. You've been brought inside, but we're not interested in your opinions. We're giving you a life, we're giving you a trade, and we'll be giving you some orders downstream, and by God, you better snap to when the moment comes. This has nothing to do with democracy. This is fascism, is what it is.